And I found out that the world is a cruel place if you're desperate for love, right? It's a cruel place. And it's a cruel place regardless if you don't have God in your life. I was 8, 9 years old. I was being sexually abused by a neighbor across the street. So that really jaded me a lot, but it also made me hold this guilt inside of myself, thinking it was my fault. I made that person do that to me because of who I was and how I looked and everything. I was at the club. It was called Marshall's. It is now a strip club called Choices in Minneapolis, where women are being trafficked upstairs, by the way, on the second floor. She ends up going to Hawaii, and this guy like had his best friend's girl, which is another pimp, turn her out. And what I mean by that is it's when someone learns how to sell themselves into sexual exploitation, right? And we can say prostitution. Prostitution is by many opinions and words now of people that it's a choice that we got into this industry, that it's our choice to sell ourselves. But to be honest with you, my girlfriend didn't have her father in her life. And with me, we were a lot alike. We had like an orphan spirit. So we both were like rebellious against our fathers. Her and I both had the same thought process. Let's make some money. And she tells me, hey, I'm in Hawaii. Come to Hawaii. I got a ticket for you. It's $500, but we're going to cover it. Just fly here. So I was so excited. I'm like, I'm going to Hawaii. I'm like, whee! I get on the plane and I'm looking through the windows and I see it approaching the islands. And I was just like, whoa, oh my gosh, it's so green and the beaches. And we land. And the first night that I worked, I sold myself to some Japanese men with my girlfriend. And we walked down the street. We met them in Waikiki Beach. They couldn't speak English. So I had to learn how to solicit. And solicit obviously is to propose something to someone and offer them a service to get paid, right? So I said, asobi ni ikimasho iko, which means, would you like to come with me and have fun and play with me? And in Japanese, that's basically very sexual to them. You can't say that without propositioning someone for sex. And so that's what I did that night. And to me, it was like, I wasn't ashamed. It was dark, but it was like, I felt empowered. Just being real. I felt empowered. Like, oh, these guys are marks. These guys are Johns. These guys are fools. Like, they're tricks. They gave us their money, $500 each. You know, you just take your clothes off and you don't even have to touch anything, like, or anyone, like, because that's how quick it was, Anna. It was like I turned a trick without turning a trick, because this man that I was with couldn't control himself, if you get what I'm saying, without saying it, right? And I was like, this is too easy. Like, how does someone not do this? Like, this is like, I just hit a gold mine.
Easy money. Yeah, you have easy money.
$500. Yeah, $500 with no pimp, no escort service. You don't have to pay anybody. In the 80s, double it. So it was $1,000 to take my clothes off for 5 minutes and walk out the room and put my clothes back on. I was like, dude, I'm making $3.47 an hour. This is way too easy. So I ended up working the next 2 weeks of my vacation, because I took vacation from my jobs in Minnesota, and I didn't have a pimp, flew back. I quit. I'm done. I'm not going to work this job anymore. I found a better job and I signed up with the escort services. Unfortunately, we have an appetite for sex for sale in all of our world. And the demand is there for underage girls. Okay. Girls that are innocent, girls that haven't experienced hardly anything. Because see, I believe with the men that do this, they want control. It's a thrill. It's exciting for them, and they could possibly get in trouble. So that turns them on even more. And as sick as that sounds, that was the appeal that the ad that they put out for me. And I ended up almost getting cut by a machete. I had a buyer that called that he pulled out this long hunting knife with the ridges on it. And he said, I'm going to have you do whatever I want. And I just was like, okay. So I got raped. And then I had a guy pull out a shotgun, trip out on me and tell me that he was going to be my husband and I was going to live with him now. And I talked him out of like shooting me. Like, I begged him for my life. He let me go, believe it or not. And then after that happened, I was like, okay, I'm done. I am not going to work these escort services anymore. I couldn't believe that this could happen to someone like me. And I started working at the strip clubs. And listen, it's just the same thing, different avenue, right?
Mm.
And let me tell you, the people that own that escort services, their names, I'm just going to say it, were Bruce and Maggie. I didn't know they were traffickers. I mean, they took like a percentage of my money, and they were making a lot of money off of me, and I didn't realize what was going on, but I kept my own little tips that I got. And so when I started working for the actual strip clubs, that's when I met my real trafficker. And so again, I want to emphasize to everyone, just because we have chosen the sex industry as a job choice doesn't mean you don't get exploited. Okay? Because sometimes poverty will have you choose that lifestyle. Sometimes desperation will have you choose that lifestyle. And sometimes because you don't know any better and you just feel empty, it's exciting, it's new. Maybe you're going to meet your prince, maybe even Richard Gere, right? From Pretty Woman, right?
Exactly.
You're going to meet a guy that has money that absolutely loves you. That was my ultimate goal, by the way. I don't want to go in heavy detail, but my book,
Yes.
Fallen Out of the Sex Industry and Into the Arms of the Savior, this was my working name, Fallen York. This has a lot of the details we're sharing right now, but more in here. This is about a 6-hour read. I brought my boyfriend from the strip club I met, and he was a drug dealer, and I didn't like it. I brought him to Las Vegas with me because my girlfriend that was in Hawaii, her pimp had houses like Minnesota, Baltimore, Hawaii. I think he had one in California. And I just can't remember all the places he had houses, but Minneapolis as well. And he was what they call a circuit pimp. So she, had a house in Vegas with him, and she said, "Come stay with us, Annie. The money here is so good. You're gonna trip out. Like when you find out how much you can make here, it is like phenomenal." And I was like, "I'm coming to Vegas." So I brought him with me, left my apartment there, and the first night that I worked, I made some money on a couple calls, and I came back, and I was wearing all white, and I looked so cute that night. Like my hair was curled, and I got into the house, and I put my beautiful white purse on the table they had a bar there, like one of those self-serving bars. And my girlfriend, she had no idea that this guy was going to do this to me. She's like, "Fallon made money." And I was like, "Yeah." And next thing I know, my pimp's saying to me, "Break yourself." Now, this is the thing with the pimps too. They have to represent each other and themselves in front of each other. They have to show game and show their strength. So he had to serve me. That's what they call serving, and break me in front of this other pimp. Now, I didn't know it, but they probably talked before and said, "Hey, I'm about to break down Fallon so that she's totally subservient to me and she's going to get with me." Right. And I didn't have any idea this was going on. So as soon as he said, "Break yourself," and his eyes got like really big and he started looking like a monster, he took my head and started banging it on the kitchen counters and inside the drawers of the counters, and then dragged me outside into the back of the house and started beating me profusely, screaming at me, "I'm your pimp, B." Every swear word, every name in the book I was called. And I couldn't catch my breath, Anna. I was like going, "Stop." My eyes like blood in my nose, down my throat. My ears were bleeding. Like it was insane. Like I couldn't see. I was so shocked that he was hitting me and kicking me, shoving my face in dog feces. And I just laid there, just devastated. And he put me in the back room. My girlfriend was locked in her room by her pimp. And because she was going to call the police, she was like, "I'm calling the cops," because she had no idea what was about to happen. And so he brought me Neosporin or Band-Aids and whatever else. My skin got cut, and had the nerve to come in there about an hour later. And I'm just crying. And I want to call somebody, but I couldn't because I didn't have access to a phone. And I had back then a pager, and I didn't have my own cell phone yet. Cell phones back then were about this big We didn't have smartphones. It was probably 1987-ish, 88-ish. And I ended up just staying there stuck. And so the next 5 years, you guys are going to have to get the book. I was with this one pimp. And every time I got out of line, he would beat me down to where I was unrecognizable. Girl, I was in Italy and I was with one of my traffickers. He was there for a traveling show. He was a dancer in one of our very famous shows on the Strip. And we went to Italy for 3 months to live and to travel with this traveling show. And I brought my Bible. I had a Gideon Bible that someone gave me when I was 18, when I first started prostituting and before I had my first pimp. And I read the New Testament for the very first time. And I remember reading it in my cabin in our trailer that we lived in. And I would cry because, Anna, it said that Jesus loved me in that Bible. And the woman in adultery, I read her story and I just cried because I thought she was me. And the woman at the well. And I was just like, God, do you see me? Because I'm really a bad sinner right now. Like you need to help me. And I remember praying to him. Just my prayer was so simple. It was, God, just help me. Jesus, please forgive me. Help me get out of this industry. And I literally felt like the Holy Spirit came into that space for all the days I was reading the Bible. Like I had like this hope inside my heart. And I knew when I got back home to Las Vegas that I would still have to work at the escort service, that I would still have to give my money and help the guy that I was with, the pimp I was with, right? The trafficker I was living with. And so that was actually in 1994. But the day that I actually surrendered everything that I had on the line, my life, everything, was August 2nd, 2003, when I overdosed on cocaine. But let me tell you something. After being with so many different men and men beating me up, raping me, the pimps beating me up, controlling me, taking my every dollar that I made, me barely getting by with my own like cheap clothes. Like I said, blood in and blood out. This is literally like the mafia. And you can die. In fact, the stats say the first 7 years, the longest time a woman that's been sold can live at about an average of 7 years, and then she dies.
Wow.
You die young. It's the most dangerous job. I don't even want to call it a job. It's the most dangerous paid rape in the world, okay, is prostitution. So you end up meeting someone, and then if the person you think really loves you, you tell them about your profession, and they either accept you or they dump you. And most men that I was meeting in my life, they accepted me. And then all of a sudden they're living off of you. That's sex trafficking, okay? If I didn't work, listen to this. If I didn't work the escort services and I called in and said, I don't feel like working tonight, I got fined, guess how much? This was in the 80s and 90s.
$500.
Nope. $1,500 if I refused to call on. His hand on me this whole time. But what was really, really good is that when I got to my dark, dark part of my life where I had to leave I left my second pimp. My brother showed up with a shotgun. Oh, it was glorious. My brother Chuck, he's crazy. He was like, he told him, she's leaving today. And he just held the gun and my pimp just opened the door. He was scared. It was so awesome. It was so awesome. And I got away. I ended up moving out. I had a secret apartment that I stashed for. Okay. I got furniture. I filled it up with my stuff and I moved into that apartment. So I ended up getting back on drugs. It's a long story, but really, really got twisted and I started selling myself again. And so when I finally overdosed and got off drugs, that's when I started getting symptoms of severe anxiety attacks. I mean, bad. They put me on Xanax. I surrendered my life to Jesus. I got off Xanax. And Jesus told me, he said, I'm going to be your pill. I am your pill, Annie. Drink water and pray to me. And I'm telling you that he delivered me from all this stuff. And I got that revelation when I had a dream about Jesus. Well, I was in New York City at a bus stop and Jesus came to me and literally He was the most beautiful. Oh man. He didn't look human. He looked like an alien to me, like the most beautiful human I'd ever seen. His eyes were huge. They were like, one was red, one was green, one was blue. And he just walked up to me, and I knew it was Anna. I knew it was him. I just knew it. I had been praying to God, like, God, give me a dream. Give me a dream. I want to see Jesus. I don't want the Jesus that I see in pictures and movies. I want to see the real Jesus. I want to see what he looks like in heaven. Girl, when I saw him, it was like, I can't explain this. A love bomb hit me, and I was in another realm. And he came to me without his lips and started talking to me, telling me that I was beautiful, that I was chosen, that I was loved, that I was set apart. He was telling me I was his daughter, I was his princess. And then he said to me, like, before I woke up, I want you to go on the Las Vegas Strip and tell those women that I love them. And I woke up and I didn't remember the dream right away, but then I got in the shower and I literally passed out in the shower because I remembered the dream. And I was like, oh my gosh, man, the liquid love that filled me up. I was like high for about 2-3 weeks after that. Like, I loved everything and everybody. I was like, oh my gosh, I love this flower. Oh my gosh, I love you. You're just so beautiful. I was meeting people and I was like, do you know Jesus loves you? And he just like went to town with my spirit and my soul. And young kids out there that have not been healed from trauma, please, I implore you to just really seek God and get those deep inner wounds healed, because he is our healer. He is the lover of our soul, and he desires to have a relationship with you. And see, that was the key for me. When I had a relationship with Jesus, trauma cannot defeat Jesus. The key factor for my personal healing and many girls that and clients we have, the Jesus factor. Jesus is the original trauma-informed care. He is the designer of that. And what trauma-informed care really is this. It's love. Do everything in love. Let love be the law of your heart, and everything will flow after that.